They say a wand chooses the wizard, but do they also ditch the wizard when they get bored? What if your wand has secretly been counting down to retirement this whole time? Yeah, turns out these magical sticks might not be as loyal as we thought. From exploding spells to wand cores that just give up on you mid-duel, the truth might rattle even the bravest Gryffindor. In today's episode, we're diving into a theory so overlooked, even Ollivander might raise an eyebrow. And trust me, it's not what the books told you. Harry Potter fans aren't just fans. They're a special breed of thinkers. The kind who look at a three-headed dog guarding a trapdoor and go, okay, but what if it was a sphinx with asthma? These aren't just questions, they're riddles with a touch of chaos, and honestly, they make the wizarding world even richer. Every time someone asks, what if a Thestral had a driver's license? A magical theorist somewhere gets their wings. And yes, the answers matter, because when you take magic seriously, you start to uncover how the universe works under all that glitter and wand waving. Now imagine sitting around the fire at the Burrow, sipping butterbeer, and someone drops, could the sword of Gryffindor become a Horcrux? It's a vibe, right? These questions open up doors J.K. Rowling didn't even paint on the wall. And let's be honest, sometimes the fans' wild theories make more sense than the actual plot. Don't get mad. You know it's true. The beauty here is that fans dare to mix logic and magic without asking for permission. That's where the fun begins. You see, true fans aren't just consumers of the story, they're co-creators. They're the ones who dig into wand lore at 2 a.m., wondering if mixing unicorn hair and phoenix feather would cause the wand to short-circuit or explode into confetti. These people ask, what happens if you drink Felix Felicis and then try to rob Gringotts? Because sure, you could rob it, but would the goblins just hand you the gold? Maybe. That's the question. It's this level of curiosity that keeps the fandom alive long after the last movie credit rolled. And here's where it gets even better. These questions make the wizarding world feel real. When someone wonders how a basilisk got through the pipes without a single Slytherin first year going, hey, that's a massive snake, it's not nitpicking. It's love. It's the kind of attention to detail that says, I live here, at least part-time. Questions like these show us how deeply people care. It's not about poking holes. It's about understanding what makes this universe tick, which brings us to one of the boldest what-ifs ever whispered in a common room debate. Now let's crack open that deliciously dark possibility. What if the sword of Gryffindor had been turned into a Horcrux? First of all, Voldemort would have had to get his snake-like hands on it, which is already a stretch. The sword, remember, only appears to a true Gryffindor in a time of need. Voldy might be many things, but brave isn't exactly top of his resume. So the logistics alone would have been messier than a post-Hogsmeade hangover. But let's say he pulled it off. Maybe he used a proxy or tricked the goblins. If the sword had become a Horcrux, its properties would have been corrupted, just like the gaunt ring, which twisted into a cursed relic after housing a soul fragment. The sword of Gryffindor, known for absorbing what makes it stronger, might have absorbed the dark magic of the Horcrux itself. Imagine a magical artifact that was once a symbol of heroism, suddenly resisting its rightful owner. Or worse, whispering back. Here's where it gets scary fun. What if the sword turned on the user? Say Neville pulls it from the sorting hat. Classic moment, right? But instead of gleaming with courage, it's radiating dread. Maybe it even burns his hand or feeds him visions like the locket did to Ron. Turning a sacred artifact into a Horcrux doesn't just change the object, it poisons the meaning it holds. That's Voldemort's style. He doesn't just destroy, he desecrates. And that could explain why the sword's magic wouldn't function properly anymore. According to the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore said, you will find only what you truly need. Well, what if the sword needed redemption before it could reappear? What if it just stopped showing up altogether? That would have left future Gryffindors high and dry in the fight against darkness, which is kind of poetic, actually. Voldemort's paranoia ends up removing a key weapon from the hands of those trying to stop him. But if you're going to mess with powerful objects, you'd better understand how they're made first, especially when it comes to wands. Wand lore is a strange and wonderful field, equal parts science, intuition, and don't try this at home. Most people don't realize just how picky wands are. We're talking about magical divas here. A wand made of pine with a dragon heartstring might work like a dream for one wizard, but give it to someone else and it acts like a passive-aggressive houseplant. Now, someone once asked, can you mix different woods and cores in one wand? Oh, sweet summer child. Technically, yes, you could combine woods. Some wand makers in far-off regions do it with reverence and patience, layering one type over another like an enchanted sandwich. Think of it as wand fusion cuisine, but it's not standard practice. Ollivander himself said that a wand's power comes from harmony between its wood and core. Mixing woods? Maybe. Mixing cores? That's where things get spicy, and probably dangerous. Like trying to combine nitroglycerin with bubblegum. Imagine a wand with a phoenix feather and unicorn hair. It sounds epic, right? But that's like giving a car two different engines and hoping they agree on when to shift gears. Phoenix feather wants independence and flair. Unicorn hair wants consistency and peace. The result? A wand that might burst into flames one day and refuse to light a candle the next. As Ollivander would say, a wand chooses the wizard, but when a wand can't choose which part of itself to trust, that's a problem. There's no official record in the books of a wand with dual cores, and honestly, that might be for the best. Remember Ron's broken wand in the Chamber of Secrets? That thing backfired more than a jalopy in a thunderstorm. Now imagine it had conflicting magical cores instead of just a snapped spine. You'd be lucky if it didn't hex your eyebrows. Off mid-spell. Wand instability isn't just quirky, it's dangerous. But while we're talking about unstable magical phenomena, let's tackle something that's baffled fans for years. How in Merlin's name did Voldemort survive being hit with his own spell? So let's talk about the green elephant in the room. How the heck did Voldemort survive another Avada Kedavra, especially one he didn't cast himself? It's not like he had an extra life in his back pocket. Oh wait, he kinda did. See, Voldemort didn't just split his soul like a pie at a Weasley family dinner. He shattered it into 7 pieces, which means, unless every Horcrux was gone, he technically couldn't die. Death just became inconvenient. When he first died trying to kill baby Harry, it wasn't the curse that failed. It was Lily's sacrificial protection that rebounded. That protection didn't just block the curse. It ripped Voldemort from his body, leaving him as what he later described in Goblet of Fire as less than the meanest ghost. He wasn't gone, just bodiless. Kind of like when your phone dies, but the data's still in the cloud. Creepy cloud. Very dark magic. Now, if someone else cast Avada Kedavra on him, say an overconfident Auror or even a rebellious Death Eater, it wouldn't have worked either. As long as at least one Horcrux existed, his soul had a tether. The body would go poof, sure, but the soul fragment holding the master consciousness would just slither away into the magical abyss. It's like trying to delete a file without emptying the recycle bin. It keeps coming back. Here's the catch, though. Voldemort didn't just rely on Horcruxes. He also feared death so intensely that he experimented with other forms of dark survival magic. Remember that weird fetus creature thing Harry sees in Deathly Hallows? Yeah, that's what's left of a soul torn too many times. If someone else hit him with Avada Kedavra before all the Horcruxes were destroyed, the same bodiless fate would repeat. He'd lose his form, not his essence. And speaking of bodiless essence, how in the world did a basilisk the size of a subway train slither around Hogwarts without anyone noticing? Let's get real for a second. How did a gigantic, fang-dripping serpent sneak around a school full of nosy kids and suspicious ghosts, and no one noticed? I mean, this isn't a garter snake we're talking about. It's a basilisk, the king of serpents. A creature so massive it could probably arm wrestle the Whomping Willow and win. Yet somehow it used the school plumbing like it was playing magical hide-and-seek. Hogwarts. The only place where a monster can live in your pipes, and it's just a phase. Now, canonically, we know the Chamber of Secrets connects directly to the girl's bathroom haunted by Moaning Myrtle. That's where Ginny, under the influence of Tom Riddle's diary, was opening the chamber and releasing the basilisk. But still, pipes? Really? What kind of wizarding architect thought, you know what this castle needs? Basilisk-sized plumbing. It's either a miracle of magical engineering or the world's darkest prank from Salazar Slytherin. And don't get me started on logistics. Are we supposed to believe this snake was squeezing through the plumbing like toothpaste? Or were those pipes enchanted to expand and contract? If that's the case, I've got questions. Like, how has Filch never heard the scraping of scales? Echoing in the walls? Or how did nearly headless Nick never float by and go, that's odd. A giant murder noodle slithering down the corridor. Still, it almost makes sense when you think about the basilisk's petrifying gaze. It wasn't looking anyone in the eye directly. People saw it through water, reflections, or ghosts. Brilliant detail from Rowling, by the way. But that doesn't Answer how the snake knew when and where to strike. Was it following schedules? Peeking out to see if kids were late to class? Or did Tom Riddle set magical alarms for when someone wandered alone? But let's set aside giant snakes for now and talk about another dark creature in the wizarding world, one that doesn't need to slither to be terrifying. Ever wonder how vampirism works in Harry Potter? Vampires in the Harry Potter universe. Don't sparkle. Let's just get that out of the way. They're not throwing prom parties or dating clumsy teenagers. In the wizarding world, vampires are classified as non-wizard part humans, which already sounds like something the Ministry would whisper behind closed doors. They do exist, though, and while Rowling didn't give us a full-on Twilight-style subplot, she left enough breadcrumbs to build a picture, fangs and all. What we know is that vampires are considered dark creatures, and they fall under the classification of the undead. According to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, they feed on blood, no surprise there, tend to avoid sunlight, and can be repelled by garlic. So yes, some cliches still apply. The twist? Vampires in this world can be born or made. That's right. Bitten wizards can become vampires, but it's hinted they may end up as half-vampires, retaining some magical abilities. Or none at all, depending on the curse's strength. Take the curious case of Sanguini, the vampire at Slughorn's party in Half-Blood Prince. He's just casually mingling with guests, looking mildly uncomfortable. He doesn't try to bite anyone. He doesn't burst into flames. He just kind of sulks, which tells us a lot. Vampires aren't necessarily evil in this world. They're just marginalized, misunderstood, and possibly iron deficient. And clearly, Slughorn's social circle is wild enough to include one at dinner. Without a second thought. Another fascinating idea is that vampirism may not damage the soul the way dark magic does. Unlike Horcrux creation or the Dementor's kiss, there's no mention of a vampire losing their soul. So technically, they're not evil by nature, just cursed. In fact, a vampire could theoretically go to Hogwarts, shop at Diagon Alley, or even join the Order of the Phoenix, though you'd probably want to keep a blood-replenishing potion handy. Now, speaking of souls, what would happen if a Dementor sucked the soul out of someone, and then a Horcrux tried to take over the empty shell? Now this one's a real head-scratcher. What happens if a Dementor gives someone the kiss, removing their soul entirely, and then a Horcrux fragment tries to slide in and take up residence? It's like asking, if a house gets abandoned, can a squatter just move in? And let's be honest, if there's one thing Voldemort's soul fragments are good at, it's squatting in places they really shouldn't be. Just ask Professor Quirrell's Turban. But here's the catch. We don't actually know if a soulless body is even usable in the magical sense. The Dementor's kiss is said to leave a person alive, but hollow, functioning, breathing, but no thoughts, no memories, no identity. It's not death, but it's not life either. So would a Horcrux even recognize it as suitable real estate? Or would it be like trying to download software onto a toaster? Magic has limits, even dark magic. And here's where it gets spooky. Let's imagine the Horcrux could latch onto that empty vessel. What would it be? A puppet? A zombie with Voldemort's voice? Would it regain full sentience or just lurch around whispering Nagini in the dark? We've seen Horcruxes influence people, like Ginny, who was very much alive, but taking over a dead-eyed shell feels like next-level horror even Voldemort might not have considered. Interestingly, no text from the book suggests this has ever happened or could. When Harry was hit with Avada Kedavra in Deathly Hallows, the Horcrux inside him was destroyed, but he had a soul, a heartbeat, a body still tethered to life. A Dementor-kissed body is essentially an emotional void stripped of identity. It might not be able to host anything at all, not even an ambitious piece of Voldemort's shattered soul, which brings us back to Harry himself. Why didn't the Order just slap a disillusionment charm on him and call it a day instead of risking their necks with Polyjuice Potion? The disillusionment charm. One of the wizarding world's most underused tricks. Slap it on and boom, you're camouflaged like a chameleon at a rave. So why didn't the Order of the Phoenix just use it on Harry during the escape in Deathly Hallows instead of creating 7 confused teenage decoys? Seems like a major tactical oversight, right? Not exactly. In a world run by fear and magic, strategy is often more about politics than practicality. The key here is that Voldemort had taken over the Ministry. That means every enchantment, detection spell, and trace magic system was rigged to find Harry the second he made a move. The disillusionment charm, while clever, doesn't erase a trace or block magical surveillance. It's great against muggles or a nosy neighbor, but not so great when the Death Eaters are working with a surveillance state that would make Orwell nervous. They'd smell him out faster than a niffler in a bank vault, so the Order went with something riskier but more foolproof: Polyjuice Potion. It made 7 Harrys, each with his DNA, his clothes, and his trademark attitude. Sure, it was chaos. Fred got hurt, Moody didn't make it, and Hedwig, yeah, still not over that. But the logic was sound. If no one could tell which Harry was the real one, Voldemort couldn't go straight for the kill. It bought time. It saved lives. It turned. A straight shot into a maze. Also, let's not forget how unstable the disillusionment charm can be. You sneeze, stumble, or lose focus, and suddenly you're just a teenager on a broom in the middle of open sky. Target acquired. Polyjuice had risks, but it didn't depend on Harry's spellcasting under pressure. And considering how often he forgets to pack even a basic healing potion, trusting him with sustained invisibility feels optimistic. Speaking of risky spells, what would happen if someone tried pouring a dose of Felix Felicis into a dragon's mouth? Now imagine this. You're facing down a Hungarian horntail, its wings flaring, its eyes glowing, and you think, what if I just gave it a sip of Felix Felicis? Brave or bonkers? That's the million-galleon question. Felix is liquid. Luck, pure confidence in a bottle. But here's the rub. It's brewed specifically for humans. Slipping it into a dragon's water bowl might be less about winning and more about unleashing the world's most arrogant lizard. Let's be real. Felix Felicis affects behavior, not strength. It nudges a person toward decisions that just happen to turn out well. So, if a creature like a centaur or a hippogriff drank it, would they suddenly decide today's a great day to fly north and avoid battle altogether? Or would they think, you know what sounds lucky? Incinerating that wizard over there. Because luck, unfortunately, is subjective. What's good for the dragon isn't necessarily good for the guy holding the wand. Plus, there's no evidence that magical creatures metabolize potions like wizards do. Unicorn hair and powdered bicorn horn aren't exactly part of your average animal diet. Could it work? Maybe. Should you try it? Only if you've updated your will. Magical ethics aside, it could backfire terribly. Imagine a niffler dosed with Felix. He'd probably rob Gringotts blind before breakfast. That's not luck. That's economic warfare. In Half-Blood Prince, when Harry uses Felix, he doesn't become powerful. He becomes unusually perceptive and relaxed, letting the world unfold perfectly in sync with him. That kind of subtle psychological magic is hard to quantify. Applying it to a creature driven by instinct rather than intention, that's a gamble, and not even the goblins would underwrite that bet. Which brings us to another legendary gamble. Narcissa Malfoy lying straight to Voldemort's face and getting away with it. If there's one woman in the entire wizarding world who deserves an award for subtle rebellion, it's Narcissa Malfoy. Forget dueling skills or flashy spells. This woman walked into the jaws of death, looked Voldemort dead in the eye and lied, and he believed her. Let that sink in. The Dark Lord, who could smell fear like a bloodhound in a thunderstorm, was deceived by a mother in full protective mode. Here's the trick, and it's something not taught at Hogwarts. Occlumency. Narcissa was likely trained, if not officially, then informally, to guard her thoughts. Lucius was a Death Eater, and that social circle doesn't exactly reward transparency. Occlumency isn't about fighting. It's about hiding your truth under layers of stillness. Think of it like mental poker. You're always bluffing, but without the sweat. When Voldemort asked if Harry was dead, Narcissa wasn't just speaking, she was shielding. But more than that, Voldemort was emotionally off balance. Let's not forget, he just cast the killing curse on Harry again. And when Harry didn't die, that cracked his confidence, whether he admitted it or not. He needed confirmation. He needed control. Narcissa gave it to him. Her words were a mirror of his desire to believe. That's what made the lie lethal. She didn't just trick his mind, she played into his weakness. And let's not overlook her motivation. Draco. She didn't care about prophecy, war, or ideology. Her baby was in that castle, and she was going to get to him, no matter how many Dark Lords she had to lie to. In that moment, maternal love outmatched black magic. It's not always about who has the stronger wand. Sometimes it's about who has the stronger reason. Now, speaking of long-lasting things, ever wonder how long a wand actually lasts? Wands, faithful companions, unpredictable allies, and sometimes a little too sentient for comfort. But do they expire? Do they get tired one day and decide, You know what? I'm done shooting fireballs for this guy. Well, not exactly. Wands don't come with a best before date stamped on the handle, but they aren't invincible either. Think of them like a favorite pair of shoes. They'll stick with you for years if you treat them right, but ignore them long enough and they'll fall apart mid-stride. Take Ron's poor wand in Chamber of Secrets. That thing broke once and became a magical liability. Spells rebounded, slugs were vomited, and general chaos ensued. It's a clear example. Damage a wand beyond a certain point, and it's more curse than tool. On the flip side, we have the Elder Wand. Survived for over 8 centuries, switched masters more than a cursed tiara, and still worked like a charm, pun fully intended. So yes, wands can last, but their lifespan depends heavily on material, care, and whether or not you're constantly fighting Dark Lords. Wood matters too. Hawthorn is temperamental. Vinewood is sensitive. You? Basically the bad boy of wandwoods. If someone's wand wears out in 5 years, it may say more about them than the craftsmanship. And let's not even start on the core. Phoenix Feather. Wands are known to act on their own sometimes. Can you imagine a rebellious wand deciding it's done cooperating mid-duel? Yikes. What most people don't realize is that a wand bonds with the wizard's magic, but magic evolves. People grow, change, become more confident or bitter, and the wand has to keep up. In some rare cases, it just can't. That's why some wizards need a new wand later in life. It's not just wear and tear, it's magical incompatibility. Like outgrowing your childhood friend who still thinks fart jokes are the height of comedy. And if you've ever wondered what fans were absolutely sure would happen in the final book, but didn't, well, that's a whole different spellbook waiting to be opened. So, do wands last forever? Maybe. Maybe not. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think wands have a secret shelf life? Could some of them just stop working out of pure magical burnout? And what about yours? Would your wand stay loyal, or would it ghost you at the worst moment? Drop your theory in the comments. I read them all, even the crazy ones. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss the next deep dive into the wizarding world. And hey, if you love unraveling fan myths and shocking book twists, then you need to watch this next video. Things fans were sure would happen at the end of Harry Potter, but didn't. Trust me, it'll flip your predictions upside down.